Welcome to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, where we aim to break down barriers, demystify blindness, and promote real and lasting change. Join host David Steinmetz as he connects us with professionals who are making a positive impact in the community. These leaders help empower individuals who are blind or have other disabilities to live a full and inclusive life. Let's lean in as David kicks off today's conversation.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time. It's really exciting to be able to have this venue, this opportunity to reach out to the community, the business community in Arizona and across the nation and around the world with internet radio nowadays. I've been thinking a lot lately. I had a opportunity to go and do an outreach event at an elementary school, talking with second graders and really bringing awareness about blindness, the tools and techniques that I use in my life at home or even at work to be successful and live an independent life. It's really important, I think, to get that message out early to kids to kind of take away some of those stigmas about blindness, allow them the opportunity to ask questions because, at that age, they are asking the honest questions that everybody else is thinking. And so it's good to educate them. And I think that they take that education back to their parents and it helps continue to demystify, continue to bring awareness and change some of the fears of talking to somebody who has a disability. Through that conversation, the kids ask some great questions. Do people who are blind drive? What do I do with my dog while I'm sleeping? What is the dog doing? To some really hard questions about what is it like to be blind? Those are questions that often make me think about, what is it like? Is it any different? And the answer is no. I still have the same dreams, same hopes, same fears, same desires to be productive in life, to raise successful children, to be a good person, be a good person in my community. But may do things a little bit different than everybody else in terms of achieving those goals and aspirations and just being a happy person. And so I told the kids, if you close your eyes, it doesn't mean that you are now a different person because you can't see me standing at the front of the room or anything. Doesn't change who you are. It changes how you interact with me and how I interact with you. So it's a great opportunity to do that. And having this show, we continue to build that awareness, continue to talk with leaders who are making a difference in the community. And so I'm really excited. One of those leaders in the community is Jared Kittelson, the CEO of Foundation for Blind Children. And so welcome, Jared. Thanks for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me, David.
Jared, you want to give our listeners maybe just some of your background as a leader and your experience with FBC?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in leadership for almost 20 years now. I started as a high school principal here in Phoenix for 16 to 21-year-olds. Oversaw 20-some charter schools across the country before eventually landing in a position as an executive director at a local YMCA. And then about 6 years ago, I was introduced to Foundation for Blind Children and discovered a real jewel here in the Valley and learned about their work and their mission. And from since then, I've been hooked. And I came into Foundation for Blind Children as their director of educational services, which meant I oversaw our early intervention program, which is a birth to 3 program here in Maricopa County, the preschool, elementary program, and our itinerant services, which are a group of teachers that go into about 55 different school districts here in the Valley and provide vision services to about 225 students.
Fantastic. So FBC, or Foundation for Blind Children, serves not only children, but adults. So I know you guys have from birth to a client that is, over 100 years
Yeah,
old.
103 years old. Yeah, that's probably the biggest misconception we have is You hear Foundation for Blind Children, you think of little kids running around the campus, but we serve the visually impaired of all ages. We serve over 2,000 individuals a year. We, like you said, we work with adults, we work with teenagers, we work with college students. We have a low vision clinic on site that serves all ages. I mentioned the preschool. It's the largest preschool in the country that serves the visually impaired here in Phoenix, Arizona, as well as the largest Braille library
Hmm.
in the country here in Phoenix, Arizona. So we are providing services not only in Maricopa, but throughout the state of Arizona. And I think there's 38 states in this country that receive services from FBC.
Wow, that's incredible. I didn't realize that you had
Yeah.
that large of a presence. And those resources are for, as you mentioned, students, whether they're high school or college age, right?
Hmm.
And you're also educating the family. I think is part of the big or very important process for a child in their terms of their development. How to ensure that parents aren't overprotecting, and allowing the children to experience, and how to interact in their environment with low or no vision.
Yeah, the parents are the child's first teacher, right?
Mhm,
And you hit on a point that is big into our philosophy. Parents these days have a tendency to bubble wrap their
mhm,
children. I think that becomes more pronounced when that child has a disability. And so our education and our programs doesn't just focus on the child or the student or the client, but we like to say that when a student comes to FBC, we don't just enroll that child or that student or that client, we enroll the entire family because
mhm,
it's essential that talk about demystifying. It's important to demystify it for the family,
mhm.
right? And
Right.
and instead of the narrative being this is what the child can't do, it's what the child can do. And I loved your introduction when you say I do anything and everything a sighted person does. I just may do it differently,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
that's really at the core what FBC is about is providing that independence, providing those strategies to do whatever it is you want to do, right? Whatever your dreams are, we're going to teach you how to do it. And one of the programs we have, or a cool thing we do, is challenge events.
mhm.
And over the course of our history, we've done things like climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
We have swam the Alcatraz Channel. We took a couple years ago. We took 13 students ages 14 to 21. We hiked down the Grand Canyon, spent 9 days, 8 nights rafting the Colorado River
Mm,
in some of the most harsh conditions North America has to offer. And those kids had to set up a tent at the bottom of the Grand Canyon and figure out where to go to the bathroom and help prepare a meal and pack it up and throw it in a raft. And you walk out of that experience standing a little taller and
mhm,
talking with a little bit more confidence, and it changes that narrative, changes that conversation, that if I can handle the Grand Canyon for 9 days,
mhm,
I can and figure out where to set up a campsite and where to go to the bathroom and at the bottom, I can
mhm,
figure out this office. I can figure out where the copy machine is. I can figure out a spreadsheet. And that's what it's about. That's what it's about is changing the narrative of the community, changing what the narrative of their families. And the kids are the easy part, right? They're
mhm.
pretty resilient and
Right.
are ready to go. So yeah, it's an important part of what we do.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I followed your last student who piloted a
Hmm.
plane from Phoenix to Washington, D.C., and went through all the same learning to become a pilot that any other person would do. From your campaign, I was able to follow and see, brailing a mock up of the instrument panel
Yep.
to learn where everything is, right? And so those transferable skills are so important. And as you mentioned, the confidence, right? Because those are some of the things that often here is, and this probably leads into a lot of what we're going to talk later today about
Sure.
is about that confidence in the workplace and how you approach life, how you approach your job, And what employers are looking for is someone that can come in, has the solution for them to do their job already dealt with. And now it's okay, we're going to give you the basics, on the job training or whatever path that they do for their training to bring somebody on, that the individual, the client, the employee already has the confidence and the tools to be successful in the workplace.
Yeah, and that you bring up a great point with one of our former students being able to fly a plane, and it's another prime example of just need to do things differently, right? The
Mhm,
aviation company that we worked with had never worked with a visually impaired pilot before, and that student worked really hard. Kai Armstrong worked really hard to learn the instrument panels, and our incredible staff worked with her and trained her and helped her learn those skills necessary. And yeah, if you can learn how to fly a plane, which is one of those things you probably thought was off the table, yeah, we can do that. So we
mhm,
can walk into any professional setting and let's just figure out a way to do it.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, and we talked about it, and that there's a lot of myth around blindness and abilities rather than disabilities around blindness. And coming from a nonprofit background that you had, as well as some in the for profit, what do you find, and being in this field now, what do you find are some of the biggest myths, maybe from the community and employers, about hiring or just in general people who are blind?
I think when it's some of the biggest myths that we fight against is pity. And people have this tendency to feel sorry for our students, and that's the last thing anyone wants for our students is and instead that's why I say like starting the narrative of look like how can we do things differently? How can
Mhm,
we make some slight changes to our lobby to make it more accessible to an individual that is visually impaired? How can we set up our business? How can we set up our offerings to make it more accessible? And so I think making that information known to the community as a whole is really important. We take a philosophy of, we don't want just the teacher, the visually impaired, to know how to support our kids. We want the entire community to know how to support
mhm,
our kids. And it can be really simple adjustments to every day, right? If you're a teacher in the classroom, it could be your seating chart. It could be descriptions of pictures on a PowerPoint, right? Or audio
mhm,
descriptions on a movie that you're showing in class. And having that awareness is so crucial to accessibility and building confidence for that child and not
mhm,
making them feel excluded or less than. And
mhm,
when you see that confidence build, and I got to see that firsthand on that Grand Canyon trip,
mhm,
to see 13 kids be able to hike down a mountain, right, 8 miles down into the canyon, carrying everything they need for 9 days and walk out. That confidence is so critical to any child's development. It doesn't matter if they're visually impaired or they're sighted or whatever the disability. A young adult with confidence is a magical thing. So
mhm,
I think that's probably the biggest battle we fight is demystifying that blindness. I love that term
mhm.
because too many people in our community have never had a firsthand experience with someone
Right.
who's visually impaired, and unfortunately, that first reaction or that first instinct is to be scared, right?
Mhm,
Or tiptoe or walk on eggshells or
mhm,
being afraid to offend, and so based on that initial reaction, you just kind of retreat, right? You just kind of
mhm,
retreat
mhm,
instead of diving in and asking questions and interacting like you would anyone else. So I think the more we can communicate and the more exposure we can have to our mission, and continue to highlight what individuals with visual impairment can do, I think it benefits everyone, not just the visually impaired community, but you're opening up a workforce and a population to your business, your community that you may have thought was not there, right, or not possible.
yeah, absolutely. First of all, the awareness, right? And
Mhm.
having the possibility of making that approach, right? In my family, for example, when I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa many years ago, we had nobody in the family. We knew nobody that was blind, and so we didn't have the education. We didn't have the knowledge of what a disability is, what blindness is, and from many different points in my life that I have people telling me the negative side of it, from career exploration to, just walking into a job interview with a cane or without the cane and missing some of the nonverbal communications, that things that are going on, like a handshake or reading somebody's face when you answer a question. There's been lots of points in my life where I had to change my perception and help change other people's perception and what are realistic, what are expectations. And through that process, there was lots of times where I'd let other people do things for me. And as I learned and became more confident in myself, it was easier to say, what, I got this, I'm going to do it, and go on. So a simple thing is going to the bank and getting cash for yourself and doing those things versus having somebody else support you in that. And it freeing for me, which allows me to go out and be more open and honest to the community and bring that awareness. So it's great that you're doing that at a younger age, even with the adults who have lost vision later in life, right? Because your program works with all levels,
Hmm.
people that recently acquired blindness due to a illness, car accident, etc. So teaching that confidence, teaching the skills that will allow you to do that independently is so important, and it brings that confidence to the person as they carry themselves throughout the world.
Yeah, it really starts with that mindset, right? It's not always the tangible skills of learning assistive technology or cane travel or learning how to navigate a kitchen. It really starts with the mindset, whether it's a parent of a young family going through that grief process, and that's why it's so important that we connect them with not only the resources but a support network around them, right? Like
Hmm.
you mentioned, your family didn't have a neighbor they could go to talk about, hey, what is this going to be like,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or even present day, right? You and I growing up, we didn't have the internet
Hmm.
available to us, but that's not always a warm and welcoming place to dive down the rabbit hole of the internet,
Right.
particularly in the medical space. So it is really important to establish that mindset of independence and
Hmm.
what's possible. And that doesn't matter if you're 3 years old, 30 years old, or 90 years old. Like you got to have that mindset of, I'm going to do this and I can do this. And I just need to figure out how. And so I think that's a really important part of what we do and what is essential, because once you have that mindset, the tactical skills are going to come, right? And so
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
we graduate or a student or client moves on from our program, that mindset is key. And if we can give them the foundation skills, they can go into a job with that mindset. They're
Hmm.
gonna learn. They're gonna learn that spreadsheet. They're gonna learn, whatever task. They're
Hmm.
they're gonna learn that social aspect of understanding the culture of a workplace, and they're going to bring a lot to the table and be a real asset for whatever team. But it starts with that mindset. It starts with that
Hmm.
mindset. That positive attitude is crucial.
Yes, very, very much so. FBC has various different programs to help, as you mentioned, giving whether it's the mobility, the skills to be successful interacting with the world. Can you talk a little bit about what those programs are?
Yeah, I mean, FBC we have over 19 programs. Close to, I think it might be 19, 20, depending upon how you define a program. But like you said, it's all ages, right? From
Hmm.
from the very first call you get from that initial diagnosis from an ophthalmologist, you call us, we show up in your doorstep in 24 to 48 hours, all the way through to 103 years old, whether it's at the low vision optometrist. So everything and anything in between. The common theme is independence. So at
Hmm.
every program, regardless of age and setting. It's about establishing independence, and in particular, we teach the expanded core curriculum. And so, the expanded core curriculum are the skills someone who is visually impaired needs to access their sighted world, right? And so that's where we get into the assistive technology. We get into compensatory skills, orientation, mobility, self determination.
Hmm.
There's 9 of those, and that's probably a whole separate podcast as far as breaking that down. But
Right.
that's what we do, and we do it in various settings. Like I said, 2,000 individuals a year throughout all ages.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that you address all aspects of life, right? That some you're gonna experience, and you're
Hmm.
gonna have to be able to solve this complex issue, whatever it may be, or simple task, and we're going to teach you the skills to do that so that you can remain independent. And I think one of the programs that I know you guys do there is your transition program with high school students.
Hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because it's really intriguing.
Yeah, we do a 6-week residential program. In the summer, we bring about 20 to 25 students, ages 14 to 21, and they stay on campus for 6 weeks. Oftentimes, that's the first overnight trip that they
Hmm.
have. First time they're away from home. We talk about that bubble wrap.
Hmm.
So they're thrust into dorm life, and now they're responsible for taking care of their room and making their bed. And they learn how to grocery shop. They learn how to. They have an internship, so they have to learn how to manage a job. They have to learn all the independent living skills. Learn how to cook, get around the kitchen. All that
Hmm.
happens in this 6-week program, and it really is transformational because oftentimes that's their first taste of independence,
Hmm.
right? And it
Hmm.
it it, it really paints a picture of what's possible, and it's a really really great program. I've had the fortune of going down to the capstone project
Hmm.
where our college prep and teen to work students give these speeches on an issue on blindness, and to see these kids stand up and at a podium in front of a room full of adults
Hmm.
and peers to speak with confidence and knowledge and the effort they put into these speeches. Public speaking is hard,
Hmm.
especially when there's 50, 60, 70 people watching you and listening to every word you're saying. That's scary. That transcends vision or no
Right.
vision. So it's a really powerful program, and our instructors do a great job, and they learn the assistive technology and, like I said, the independent living
Hmm.
skills. So that's also a misconception a lot of people have when they talk about instructors in vision education. It's not just academics. It's not
Hmm.
just technology. It's the whole person, right? It's
Right.
community. It's how to access public transportation. It's how to take care of yourself and
Hmm.
and in the kitchen. And but yeah, then you still got to access your curriculum. You still got to know the math and the science and all that
Right.
stuff. So it's a unique position in the world of education, whether that's youth or adults. So you
Hmm.
got to learn the whole enchilada.
Yeah, and I think that's the same for you think about students graduating and transitioning into college and going away, right? That may be
Hmm.
their first experience and
Sure.
having, right? And so if you're able to provide some of that experience up front to take away some of those fears and show the client, the student, and the family, because as you mentioned, right, the bubble wrap, or even as as a parent myself, when your kids go off and are starting their life on their own, it can be a scary thing. So knowing that they have the skill sets to be individuals, to be independent,
That's right.
make their own decisions, and let them find their way. Going out there and doing that, knowing that your kid may have has a visual impairment and has the tools to be successful, probably eases a little bit of that along the way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's frightening dropping a kid off at a dorm regardless.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think there is a sense of relief and comfort to know that yeah, my kid's able to survive six
Mhm.
weeks without me, and
Mhm.
maybe Yeah, in fact, I know it's probably harder than the parents, harder on the parents than it is the kid. The kid's like, all right, see ya. I see, my friends are here, and
Right.
I'll see you in 6 weeks. So it's a really transformational program. It sets them up for employment, right? And that's
Hmm.
when we start exploring some different avenues of employment, just like any other teenager. Try to expose them some different lines of work and professions. And you didn't know what you wanted to be when you were 15, 16 years old. I know I sure as heck didn't. Yeah, it's an important part of growing up and being an adult and figuring out where you're going to fit into society.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about the teacher for the blind
Hmm.
and vision impaired, and you were talking about not just the blindness skills, orientation, mobility, assistive technology, but as well as some of the, whether it's grocery shopping, making sure that your kitchen is clean or your house is clean, and so forth. How to live independently.
Hmm.
And I've heard that there are shortages teachers for the blind vision impaired. What is FBC doing, and what else can we be doing to improve that situation and support the community better?
Our teacher shortage or instructor shortage is certainly not unique to our field, right? We know that there are teacher shortages across the country. In Arizona, there's shortage of math teachers, elementary teachers, high school teachers. So that's not unique. What is unique to the shortage of vision instructors, it is so narrow niche. A typical elementary school can post a fourth grade teacher, and their pool to select from is tremendous. FBC posts an ad for a teacher of the visually impaired. There's very few teachers of the visually impaired out there, and quite frankly, most of them are employed. So we're looking at a shortage of there's probably a shortage throughout the state of 20 to 30 TVIs and that's a rough estimate. But what we figured out 5, 6, 7 years ago was posting positions and promoted ads on Indeed weren't going to find us TBIs, and that wasn't going to be the path to filling these vacancies. We had to figure out how to develop our own
Mm.
and make our own. And so we developed this partnership with Arizona State University to create the first bachelor's program west of the Mississippi. And what is really unique about this particular program compared to any other program out there is we offer not only the vision coursework and the theoretical coursework that goes into post-secondary education, but we also have the clinical experience as well. So we can
Mm.
expose these college students to, what it means to be a TVI or a teacher visually impaired for early intervention working with babies. What does that look like in a classroom setting? What does that look like at an itinerant? A lot of our ASU students work in our summer program, some of the teen to work and college prep program I'm talking about. And we were able to graduate 12 TVIs this past spring, which doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things,
Mhm.
but you're talking about a vacancy of 20 to 30 statewide, and we just graduated 12, right?
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
a big chunk. We also have a house not too far from our central campus. We call it the iPad. We bring in vision professionals from all over the world, really, that come in and they do an internship with us.
Mm.
And what is the draw is we are strategical about it. We will do our recruitment pitches in January and February to those colleges up north, and when it's 20 below, and we give them a little quick weather report and tell them what FBC can offer,
Mhm.
is certainly part of it. But it's really that breadth of services that we're able to offer. There's only so many places in the country or even the world where on one campus you're going to have an early intervention program, a preschool program, a program for teenagers, uh, a program for adults, a low vision optometry clinic on site, and
Mhm.
over 40 vision professionals that you can tap in as a network. A vision educator is a pretty lonely profession typically.
Mhm.
So to have that collegiality amongst peers is pretty special. And it's been really effective of building a great team of vision providers that
Mhm.
are bought into doing what's best for the student, the client, and really has created a collaborative environment. They really do support each other and look at the entire FBC as their charge to
Right.
help.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the program is just amazing that you're able to create these opportunities, right? Identifying a solution, or excuse me, identifying the problem, right? Is shortages and what impact that has on the blindness community. And then going out and creating the solution, finding partners in the community to collaborate with to develop programs to fill those gaps. I think what I do on an everyday basis, right? Is there's a problem, and how do I find that solution to do that? Whether it's as the community and public relations manager at Arizona Industries for the Blind, and going out and talking to an organization about their business processes and how we can help find a solution to some of those pain points, to those awareness campaigns of these are really the abilities of people who are blind. There's nothing to fear about blindness, meeting somebody or hiring somebody who is blind or interacting with somebody who's blind. It's just here's a solution, here's a way to do that, right? You
Absolutely.
have different conversations. Is instead of saying, oh, you need directions, okay, well, it's over there. Help me out by saying, okay, it's over by a Starbucks, there's a mailbox, or it's two streets down and to the left, whatever
Right.
it may be, right? So
Yeah.
it's achieving the same goal. It's just how do we provide that solution to get there? And the same thing comes when we're talking about leadership, and as you're bringing your clients through, your students and clients, and we talked about either the challenge experiences or the programs that you provide to create that independence and gain the confidence. Leadership comes in all different forms, whether you're a leader of in the community, you're participating community organizations, civic organizations, or even within your own workplace, right?
Hmm.
And so, and for FBC, and from your point of view about leadership, how is that being developed either within FBC, or how can organizations do that in general?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think it's a question a lot of organizations are asking themselves right now. It's certainly FBC is, and we took that same approach I was explaining with our vision educators. Is we can't just put an ad on Indeed and hope for the best.
Hmm.
I learned pretty early in my career when it comes to bringing people onto your organization, you got two options. You can either develop talent or you can pay for it, and the latter isn't always an option depending upon what your budget is. But
Hmm.
developing talent really just comes down to some intentional strategies by the organization to develop the people that are within your organization. And so that's been our approach. And I would say it's a two front approach as far as how we've looked at leadership in FBC to support this growth. FBC is we're just doing a program evaluation the other day, and we've added 5 or 6 programs over the last 2 or 3 years. Some local here in Maricopa, some statewide, some even national. We just recently got a contract with the American Printing House of the Blind to provide assistive technology training to 6 states,
Hmm.
and it's essentially 5,000 students across these 6 states. Massive, right?
Hmm.
So how are we going to do it? Leadership is an important part of it, and so one is to develop leaders from within. Who's going to step up and lead this new initiative? Who's going to step up and take something off a plate, because we can't just keep throwing stuff on our current leaders, right? We're
Hmm.
going to burn them out.
Right.
And so we started a program called Tomorrow's Leaders, and it's a 14-month program where we it's an application process where current staff will put in an application. Why I want to be a leader? What are you looking to get out of it? And we select 10 to go through this program. And this cohort goes through this 14-month program where they learn starting with the mindset to learn that leadership mindset and what it means to be a leader. And they learn and figure out what their own identity is. I think a
Mm-hmm.
common pitfall for a new leader is they try to pretend to be a leader that they're not,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another lesson we've learned. But so they start with the leadership mindset, and then they get into the skill set of leading others and how to lead others that aren't exactly wired like you. How to motivate, how to
Mm-hmm.
inspire. A lot of first time leaders come to me and they're shocked that, hey, they didn't. I sent an email and it didn't happen. Like they didn't listen to me. It's like, well, if leadership was only that easy, of just telling people what to do, and so you
Right.
gotta learn how to inspire and create a vision and where people are inspired to follow. And then we get into, some of the tactics of, the operations and how to read a financial spreadsheet and manage a budget and how to present professionally and have that executive presence. So it's this full comprehensive program, and we work on different projects and application. They learn how to set up a mentoring network, so that at the end of these 14 months that you're able and have the skill set to be a leader, whether that's at FBC or, you know, t- there's an opportunity for them elsewhere that
Mm-hmm.
is just too, their wings are too big for FBC and they got to go somewhere else. And that's okay. And that's been something we've been willing to live with, is that
Mm-hmm.
if we're developing people so well that they have to leave for bigger and better opportunities, that's something we're going to live with. But we're just going to keep on developing these people. And it's been a great program. We're actually in our second cohort.
Right.
Our first cohort was 10 people, and I think 6 of them have already taken on roles and responsibilities. I think 2 left the organization, but the other 4 took on promotions. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been a great program thus far. And that's something we've learned, is we got to be really intentional about developing our professionals, not waiting till there's a vacancy and being like, "Oh no,
Mm-hmm.
we got to
Mm-hmm.
do something," and instead trying to create that bench. And we got some work to do. We certainly aren't perfect and
Mm-hmm.
have it all figured out, but we're certainly heading that direction.
Yeah, it's great that you're taking that initiative. You talked about influencing or inspiring other people as a leader, right? It's not, okay, you go do this, 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 and this, and I'm going to measure your performance and make sure,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of times organizations get into a belief or mindset that, hey, I've got this employee over here and they're really excelling in their position. So they're going to make a good supervisor or leader. You put that person in position to really setting them up for failure
Hmm.
because either they've never had the opportunity, so they don't have this maybe the skill set, so they don't understand the roles and responsibility of what that position really means.
That's a great point. That's some conversations we've been having at FBC these last couple weeks. Is, just because you're a good teacher doesn't mean you'll be a great principal, right? Does
Hmm.
Just because you're a
Hmm.
great salesperson doesn't mean you'll be a good sales manager.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a common pitfall. Is you take someone who's good at one skill set, doesn't mean it'll transcend into a completely different skill set. So it is a common pitfall. I see it all the time. We pull our best people in their current positions and assume that they're going to be able to lead others. And what it really does is it creates frustration for both the team and the leader, right?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
really good teacher is usually pretty talented, has a high degree of integrity and a high degree of standard. And it's hard when the rest of the group isn't meeting that standard. It's like, well, why aren't you doing what I did? And it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Hmm.
And so that's why we teach those things, right? Like how do you lead people that don't think like you?
Hmm.
How do you lead people that aren't motivated by the same things? Like you may be motivated by, status, or you might be motivated by doing intrinsic good. Other person might be motivated by autonomy, right? Or just
Hmm.
give me a time off, right? Give me the afternoon off after a good job. I don't need a pizza party. And
Mhm.
so that's some common disconnects with
Right.
with leaders, where leaders think they're doing great, and they don't see their team responding, and it's a real disconnect. Not ill intent, right?
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
just misguided effort. And if we can kind of create a little less friction between those initiatives, everyone's for the better.
Mhm. Yeah, so in terms of leadership, from your position, what do you think are some of the major skill sets or abilities? You talked about mindset. You talked about being able to inspire others. What would be some other key components of leadership that, as either your clients or people in the community are looking to advance their career to the level that they can,
Mhm.
what would some of those skill sets be?
So my first advice on this would be a little theoretical, not as much tactical, but the best advice I can give to people aspiring to be in a leadership position is you got to be yourself, right? Whatever group of people you're following will sniff out that it's inauthentic, or you're
Mm,
pretending to be someone you're not. You got to lead in a way that is authentic to yourself. And I talked about that second lesson we've learned with leadership. Leadership doesn't need to be the biggest personality in the room. The
mm,
leadership Effective leadership doesn't need to be the best public speaker. It doesn't need to be a bombastic
mhm,
personality. That doesn't always need to be a leader. But if that leader knows who they are, right? Knows their
mm,
strengths, knows their weaknesses, now you can build a team around you that can create a really effective team, right? And so
okay.
that's one of the things we spent a lot of time. We've done some various assessments, spend a lot of work as far as learning, hey, what am I good at? What am I not so good at? I
Mhm,
in particular am not very good with details and that organization and to details, and knowing all some of those detail logistics. So I surround myself with very detail orientated people
mhm,
that can help support what I'm trying to do as a team. And so now I've looked at it from more a holistic approach versus not what can I do, but what can we do? And here are
mhm,
the different parts. And I think that kind of unlocks a different level of leadership when you look at it that way. And so if you're not someone who likes to get up and talk, and you want to be a leader, that's okay. But you
mhm,
just got to surround yourself with people that can. Right? We
mhm,
got we got a leader at FBC that is a very effective leader, has a ton of skill. She just happens to not enjoy getting up in front of people
mhm,
and speaking, and that's okay. She
mhm,
she can call me and say, hey, Jared, I need you to execute this. This is the topic. Here's the message. I can do that. That's not a pain point for me, but she executed and got the project completed, right?
mhm,
As the leader, even though she didn't have to necessarily be in front. So it's important that you're able to lead, from the first position, second position, or third position. So there's no one right
mhm,
or wrong way to lead, but
right.
I think that's at a very high level. You
Mhm,
gotta start with that. You gotta know who you are, what you're good at, what you're not, because how do you build a team? And it really is a team sport, right? Otherwise, you're
mhm,
not leading. Otherwise, you're
right.
just by yourself. So,
Sure.
I would say that's probably the most critical aspect of it.
Yeah, it's so important, right? Because oftentimes you find people think they're in the position of responsibility at that level, that they have to know everything or they have to do everything. And having people around you that have those skill sets, right? There's many leadership books, right? And having people in the right seats in the right places. And so you build on those strengths because you can't do everything as in your position as the CEO, right? You can't do it all. You have to have those people with expertise or have thrive in one area and may struggle in another that you can support and vice versa. I think is really key. And it builds, I think, organizational culture, right? That I'm supported, I'm able to do the things I want to do. What role does in terms of culture, what role does that play, like in FBC?
The culture at any organization, and certainly FBC, is the catalyst for the magic to happen, right? You and I can sit in a room and we can whiteboard all kinds of great ideas, but if we can't get a group of people bought into what we're trying to do and how we're going to do it, and making sure they have the resources to do it and understand what the objective is, doesn't really matter how good our idea is. The culture is really important to accomplish anything great. And we spend a lot of time on culture
Mhm.
and spend a lot of time on protecting that culture. And it's not overcomplicated, right? I like to say when I'm looking for someone on my team, I'm looking for three things really. I'm looking, are they innovative, right? Are they willing to have a growth mindset and willing to, try new things for the betterment of the mission? The second thing is they have to care about the student or the client, right?
Mhm.
And then the third thing is you got to be willing to collaborate
Mhm.
and work with one another. The reason those three things are the most important to me, because those are the ones that are difficult to teach,
Mhm.
right? And so it's difficult to teach someone to be innovative if they got a fixed mindset. It's difficult to
Mm.
teach someone to care if they don't care, and it's difficult to teach someone to be willing to be collaborative or just be nice to people, right?
Mhm.
We can teach them how to do a functional vision assessment. We can teach them how to use Microsoft Teams or Zoom. We can teach them some of those tactical skills, but if you're an organization, what are the values, or what are the traits you're looking for that are non-negotiables? And if someone infringes on that non-negotiable, they're just not a fit, and that's okay. It's not for everyone, but when you do hard things, you got to have a team that's willing and bought into to why. And during the pandemic, we were fortunate to have a team that really bought into those three traits, right? Being
Mhm.
innovative and let's just do what's best for kids, and let's work together. We wouldn't have gotten through the pandemic without those three traits. We
Mhm.
made a decision to close down on a Friday, and that following Monday, our teachers were online for
Mhm.
our kids, when a lot of people just hung up that sign and said, "Hey, we'll be back after the pandemic," when we thought it
Mhm.
was going to last a couple weeks. So you can't do that without that mindset, and we didn't know how to do it.
Mhm.
We just figured it out, and everyone rallied. I mean, our IT was sending iPads out. Our media center was creating tactile kits
Hmm.
that our students could access, and the teachers would facilitate the lessons over Zoom. I can assure you 90% of our staff had never been on a video conference, and we were figuring it out as we went. So
Yeah.
that culture makes it happen for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I think it's really hard, and you can hire people to do a job, right? Whatever that is, and they can come in, they can push the button, they can do this, they can do that. But if you don't have the buy-in, you don't have the belief and care about the job that you're doing, then it makes it very hard. Well, one, it would be evident, but it would be two, it'd be hard to achieve the organization's overall goals. And so I think that I agree with you. It's really important to find those people that are committed to what it is that they're doing.
That's right.
And certainly every organization needs people at all levels, right? Someone who is very satisfied with the job that they're doing, whether they're pushing a broom or that they are, the CEO of a Fortune 500 organization, is that you have to have that passion. You have to have the understanding that this is a job that is one, right, is putting food on the table, supporting my family, whatever it
Mhm.
happens to be, to that maybe I'm making a difference, that my task or job is making a difference in helping that organization grow.
That's a great point. I think the latter is really crucial to organizations like ours, because our job is hard. If it was just a dollar for dollar comparison, there's probably jobs out there where you can make the same amount of money that might be easier, but the impact isn't is great. And I
Hmm.
think that's something that's really important to the people that work at FBC is the people we serve, right? The families, the students, the clients. There's a great story of JFK was touring Cape Canaveral back in the 60s, and he asked the janitor, he goes, "What do you do here?" And he goes, "I'm putting a man on the moon."
Hmm.
And he didn't look at himself as, I'm just a janitor, I just sweep. He's like, no, I'm part of a team that is
Hmm.
putting a man on the moon. And I think that says a lot and had a lot to do with that mindset of that team being able to get something done that what they thought was impossible. And so, kind of going back to that leadership, that leader's responsibility is to create, synergies between all the different tasks of why is your task important
Hmm.
and what does it have to do with the greater mission. And
Hmm.
every job should be important. Otherwise, why have it?
Hmm.
And so how does that all fit in? And
Hmm.
sometimes you do need to spell it out and kind of remind people that, yeah, I mean, facilities is key, and IT and how we pay the bills and our finance and our
Hmm.
HR and maybe some of those behind the scenes are important,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
and help, do what we do. So yeah, it's a great story of, how
Hmm.
every part matters.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great conversation. We're butting up on our time here, Jared. How would people contact you or FBC?
We are at seeitourway.org, seitourway.org. And then we got a beautiful campus on 12th Street in Northern here in Phoenix, 1234 East Northern Avenue here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'd welcome anyone in the area to stop by and take a tour. Happy to show our work.
Fantastic, and thank you again. Really important conversations. Appreciate your insight and your leadership for FBC and moving it forward as it continues to grow. So thank you. I'd also like to thank today's sponsor is Arizona Industries for the Blind, empowering people who are blind or vision impaired to participate in the great American work experience and achieve their version of the American dream by creating and sustaining dignified employment. Hope that today our audience was able to understand that with the right training, the right technology, and the right attitude, people who are blind can compete and are successful in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Changing the Perception of Blindness, One Conversation at a Time with your host, David Steinmetz. Be sure to subscribe to Changing the Perception of Blindness, One Conversation at a Time on your favorite podcast platform and tune in live on Phoenix Business RadioX every third Friday at 1 p.m. We hope you feel inspired by today's conversation, and maybe we've even sparked a new idea or opportunity.